During the day, the woman was an ugly wife disliked for her appearance. But at night, she became the most dazzling socialite of Shanghai Bund. And countless men spent fortunes just to dance one song with her. Even 80-year-old men fell hopelessly obsessed, showing up at the Vienna Night City every night hoping to dance with her. And just as the old man extended his arm to invite her, a large hand grabbed her wrist tightly. "You think you deserve to dance with Miss Lon?" The one who came was her husband, Qin Chuan, yet he had no idea the woman before him was his own wife. Before her father passed away, he left Lan Huaying only a nearly bankrupt ballroom. For his daughter's future, he took out a jade pendant from his chest, hoping she would marry the eldest young master of the Qin family, his final dying wish. Unexpectedly, just as Lan Huaying managed the ballroom into prosperity, she fulfilled the marriage arranged by both families' elders. But she was unwilling, so she disguised herself as ugly to escape this marriage. When Qin Chuan lifted the red veil, her ugly face shocked him so much his mouth fell open. He pushed his newlywed wife away. "Ugly woman, get the hell away from me." Seeing his reaction, Lan Huaying slowly unbuttoned the area near her chest, speaking in a tempting voice. "Husband, should we consummate the marriage now?" Qin Chuan was so terrified he fled out the door, only to run into his seventh uncle in the courtyard. Seeing his nephew flee in panic, along with the bride's playful laughter beside him, instantly stirred the seventh uncle's curiosity. Lan Huaying wiped off the ugly makeup on her face, removed the hairpin from her head and sighed in relief. She finally drove him away. Suddenly, a graceful flute melody drew her attention. She looked toward the windowsill and saw the seventh uncle playing a flute in the courtyard. Lan Huaying instantly felt guilty. Did he see me? The next morning, Qin Chuan woke up from a nightmare. A foul stench rushed into his nose and he growled angrily, "What's that smell?" Only to find a whole table of durians placed in front of the bride's room. His face darkened immediately. He never imagined this was the loving breakfast prepared specially by his new wife, making his already terrible mood even worse. "Are you crazy?" No one knew whether Lan Huaying did it on purpose or not. She stumbled under her feet, and 2 pieces of durian smashed directly onto his face. She panicked and started fumbling all over his face. Qin Chuan showed an expression of utter despair, clenching his fists, standing right on the edge of exploding. He shoved Lan Huaying away. "Get the hell away from me," pushing her straight onto the ground. Lan Huaying looked back at her fleeing husband, a faint smile curling on her lips. "He'll definitely avoid me from now on." Little did she know this scene was clearly seen by the seventh uncle not far away. At night, Lan Huaying quietly slipped out through the back door and arrived at the Vienna Night City. Unexpectedly, she ran into Qin Chuan and his seventh uncle there. After giving some instructions to the manager, she asked the driver to take her home, even sighing resentfully. "Just seeing Qin Chuan is enough to fill me up." But when Qin Chuan saw Lan Huaying leaving so early, he instantly lost the mood to continue having fun. What Lan Huaying didn't expect was that her identity had been exposed. As she took a shortcut home, a figure followed closely behind her, and it was Qin Chuan's seventh uncle. Watching Lan Huaying step through the Qin family's gate, a faint smile appeared on his face. So the woman who was an ugly, dutiful wife by day turned into the most dazzling socialite of Shanghai Bund by night. And her husband visited the Vienna ballroom every night without recognizing that the elegant owner he admired was actually his ugly wife, Lan Huaying. With a sharp paw, the seventh uncle slapped the book in his hand against his palm. Hearing the sudden noise, Lan Huaying was startled and rushed quickly toward her room. Seeing her flee in panic, the seventh uncle found it quite amusing. Lan Huaying returned to her room in embarrassment, still shaken from the scare just now. She decided to stage a big show tomorrow to make her husband completely give up on her. In the morning, Qin Chuan was pulling radishes with his concubine. Lan Huaying stormed in with big strides, scaring the concubine into clutching the bedsheet tightly. Qin Chuan instantly exploded in rage. But before he could even yell, Lan Huaying launched first, furious. "How can you only care about your own pleasure?" She plopped onto the ground and started making a scene. "Qin Chuan, you bastard! You spoil your concubine and neglect your wife. Just then Qin's father and the seventh uncle walked over after hearing the commotion. Seeing them, Lan Huaying rushed straight toward her father-in-law. Qin Chuan refuses to give me children and spends every day having fun with his concubine. Qin Chuan's face was filled with fury. Dad, I was sleeping with Lvzu and this crazy woman barged in without knocking. I want to divorce her. Seeing her goal achieved, a faint smile curled on Lan Huaying's lips as she continued pretending to cry pitifully. Unexpectedly, all of this was seen by the seventh uncle. This woman really didn't care about her dignity just to make Chuan hate her. Once the father learned what his son had done, he immediately enforced the family discipline. Watching Qin Chuan kneeling in the ancestral hall, Lan Huaying was already laughing inside. At that moment, a large hand landed on her shoulder. The seventh uncle leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Are you happy?" Lan Huaying was shocked. Did he see everything I just did? She shoved the seventh uncle's arm away, trying to slip out. But the seventh uncle pressed her directly against the door panel, gripping her wrist tightly. The sharp pain made her roar at him. "Let go of me." Unexpectedly, the seventh uncle went even further and hit her with a wall slam. "Niece-in-law, answer me one question first. I've seen you entering and leaving the backyard several times, and your silhouette looks exactly like Vienna's Lan Huaying. Do you know her?" What Lan Huaying didn't expect was that the seventh uncle even did something more excessive. The next day in the study of the seventh uncle Qin Tongzhou, a military officer reported to him, "The men, the money, and the guns are ready. We only need a middleman. The best candidate is Vienna's Lan Huaying." Seeing his subordinate's strong recommendation made Qin Tongzhou even more interested in her. At night, Lan Huaying arrived at Vienna as usual, troubled about her exposed identity. A waiter came in at that moment saying an honored guest had arrived. An old general looked hesitant. "This kid wants to discuss cooperation but chose a pleasure venue. I think we should forget it." Qin Tongzhou, however, calmly said that besides wanting to have a few drinks, he also wanted the general to meet the woman he admired. At that moment, Lan Huaying appeared and paused slightly when she saw the two men. The seventh uncle had prepared an invaluable crown for her, and personally placed it on her head. Seeing the sweet interaction between the two, the old general burst into delighted laughter. "Kid, you're just like me, a devoted man. Bring her to my residence tomorrow." Only then did Lan Huaying realize she had been used by that damn Qin Tongzhou. To fulfill her father's dying wish, Lan Huaying could only take the token and marry the Qin family's eldest young master. But she couldn't accept spending her whole life with a stranger without love, so she disguised herself daily to avoid the marriage. What she never expected was that her identity would be discovered by her husband's seventh uncle, and that he would use her Vienna boss identity to complete a secret mission. Lan Huaying, used for no reason, felt extremely furious. She never expected the seventh uncle to be so shameless as to use her. She called to the driver and got into the legendary 1982 Wuling vehicle to go home. Suddenly, a car blocked their path. With a sudden sharp brake, Lan Huaying quickly asked what happened. Unexpectedly, the driver had been replaced by the seventh uncle. Qin Tongzhou even brought her to the outskirts. Lan Huaying shouted, demanding to get out, and just as she reached for the door handle, a large hand wrapped around her waist. "Do you have a death wish?" Seeing Qin Tongzhou so close to her, Lan Huaying pushed him away forcefully. But he didn't restrain himself at all, teasingly pinching her cheek. "It's just the two of us in this car." Lan Huaying exploded in anger. "Qin, you're out of line." With a sharp slap, she struck Qin Tongzhou hard across the face. The seventh uncle had never been treated like this. He lifted her onto his shoulder and threw her onto the car's hood. "I only wanted to tease you a little, but that slap reminded me. Qin Tongzhou insist on being presumptuous." Seeing Lan Huaying begging with tears in her eyes, he finally softened, turned and glanced at her. "Get in. I'll take you home." Qin Tongzhou slammed his fist onto the steering wheel. Realizing the self-control he once prided himself on completely collapsed in front of this woman. Lan Huaying looked resentful, wanting to return to Vienna. But Qin Tongzhou knew perfectly well she wanted to keep her identity hidden, so he decided to cooperate fully. watching her thin figure swaying in the wind. Qin Tongzhou subconsciously draped his coat over her. Yet even so, Lan Huaying still fell sick, lying in bed with a completely lifeless expression. She was just about to ask the maid to find a doctor, when a large hand touched her forehead. Feeling any better? Hearing the familiar voice, she turned back sharply. The seventh uncle acted fast. Qin Tongzhou had already called a doctor, who examined her and found nothing serious. Qin Tongzhou sat by the bed and began taking careful care of her. Unfortunately, Lan Huaying started talking in her sleep. Father, Ke doesn't want to marry Qin Chuan, but Ke listened to you and married him. Seeing her crying in sadness, even his cold heart began to melt. What a silly girl that he couldn't help wanting to kiss the sleeping Lan Huaying. But reason made him clench his fists tightly. He couldn't do such a beastly thing. If he really liked her, he should win her heart first, then her body. 3 days later, Lan Huaying finally recovered, and immediately went to Vienna, afraid something might go wrong. From the waiter she learned that people had been causing drunken trouble these days, all handled by Qin Tongzhou. This shocked Lan Huaying. That rogue again. At that moment, Qin Tongzhou appeared before her once more. Why come to Vienna when you're still sick? He grabbed her slender hand and handed her the jade pendant from her wedding. Your body is too weak. Wear this jade to nourish yourself. Looking at the jade pendant on her chest, a ripple stirred in Lan Huaying's once calm heart. Perhaps from this very moment, the entanglement of their fates began. The woman was the most seductive charmer of Shanghai Bund. From 80-year-old men to 3-year-old children, no one could resist her. Even powerful warlords, including her husband's seventh uncle, Qin Tongzhou, fell helplessly for her beauty. She never expected that being too beautiful could also be a crime. Soon she was targeted by a group of bandits. Their scar-faced leader had ruled this mountain for decades, and everyone who tried to eliminate the bandits ended up a cold corpse. As the saying goes, well-fed men seek lust. The second-in-command drooled as he planned to kidnap Lan Huaying and give her to the chief as a forced mountain wife. Hearing their filthy words, the man pouring wine beside them grew terrifyingly dark-faced. And while the scar-faced man was indulging in his obscene fantasies, a dagger sliced across his neck. A clean kill with one stroke. The man was none other than Qin Tongzhou. Soon all the bandit leaders became cold corpses under the hands of the elites he led. Qin Tongzhou looked at the blood on his dagger with domineering confidence. Anyone who wants to touch my woman must die. Just as he was about to leave, he looked back at the dagger on the ground, and a plan suddenly appeared in his mind. Soon in the Qin family courtyard, the butler shouted loudly, "Seventh master is injured." Lan Huaying, who happened to be in the yard, turned around sharply. What? Seeing the unconscious Qin Tongzhou on the stretcher, a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. Her father-in-law hurriedly ordered the servants to change Qin Tongzhou's medicine. Unexpectedly, he opened his eyes suddenly and grabbed Lan Huaying's slender hand. I don't want him to do it. I want you. Just as Lan Huaying stood frozen in shock, he fainted again, mumbling nonsense. Mother, help me change it, please. Seeing this, the father-in-law felt bitter. This younger brother had never seen his own mother since childhood. Ignoring his daughter-in-law's confused refusal, he left her alone to take care of his younger brother. Lan Huaying was instantly filled with exasperation. How did things suddenly turn into this? She reluctantly took out scissors and cut open the bandage on his chest, revealing a deep wound. She quickly applied a bottle of wound medicine. The sharp pain made Qin Tongzhou pull her tightly into his arms. Lan Huaying watched him keep shouting "Mother." Her face darkened with anger. Who is your mother? Just as she was about to get up, a large hand wrapped around her waist again. Caught off guard, their lips pressed together. And in this awkward moment, Qin Tongzhou suddenly woke up. Why are you kissing me? Lan Huaying was shocked. This bastard is definitely pretending. Watching Qin Tongzhou tease nonstop, Lan Huaying showed a devilish smile. I'm going to kill you. Unexpectedly, Qin Tongzhou pulled her into his arms and kissed her forcefully, even leaving a hickey on her neck. Back in her room, Lan Huaying angrily threw a comb at the mirror. Cursing in her heart that no one in the Qin family was any good, she decided to hide at Vienna for a while. She never expected her husband Qin Chuan to be waiting for her at the dance hall, which made her already terrible mood even worse. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, she suddenly thought of using her Lan Huaying identity as bait and divorcing the ugly version of herself. This perfect two birds with one stone plan instantly changed her expression. She pulled Qin Chuan's hand and walked toward her room. Her flirtatious gestures made Qin Chuan burst with happiness. After a few glasses of red wine, Lan Huaying gave him a dismissal hint, reminding him he was a married man. After Qin Chuan left, a thought of divorce arose in his mind. Everything was within Lan Huaying's plan. Just as she was feeling pleased with her own cleverness, a knocking sound came from the door. Lan Huaying was full of doubt. Who would visit this late at night? She never expected the visitor to be Qin Tongzhou, which confused her even more. Aren't you supposed to be resting at home? Why are you out? Qin Tongzhou had long seen through her identity and teased her on purpose. How do you know I was injured? Lan Huaying coughed twice to cover her slip. Everyone in Big Shanghai knows the seventh master was injured suppressing bandits. Qin Tongzhou ignored her explanation and walked straight into her bedroom. Seeing the neatly arranged boudoir bed, he finally relaxed. It seemed nothing had happened. Lan Huaying was instantly angered by his unreasonable behavior. Qin Qi, what are you trying to do? Qin Tongzhou leaned over her with domineering closeness, reaching out to pull off the accessory on her neck. Lan Huaying was shocked. Damn, there's his hickey on my neck. Her face even showed a pitiful, trembling expression. Qin Tongzhou smirked. What are you afraid of? Hiding a secret? Seeing Lan Huaying's tearful, delicate look, even he, this war god who had survived blood and tears, became flustered. He took out a handkerchief and gently wiped her tears. I came to tell you. Tomorrow I'm going to Platinum Mountain to eliminate the bandits. Lan Huaying couldn't help showing worry. Your injury isn't healed, why go again? Qin Tongzhou's lips curved into a faint smile. I secured my place in Shanghai. All of it was for you. To build the capital to marry you. That night, Lan Huaying returned to the Qin household and changed back into her ugly appearance. Thinking of what Qin Tongzhou had said, she couldn't help drinking herself drunk. She slammed her fist against the big tree in the backyard. Do you even know who I am? Want to marry me? You're injured and still going to fight bandits, bastard. She didn't expect her husband to witness this and misunderstand, thinking she drank because of him. Seeing her pitiful state, he decided to bring up the divorce tomorrow instead. Early the next morning, 7th Uncle Qin Tongzhou rode a tall horse and looked toward the Qin residence. Thinking to himself, I wonder if that little brat will miss me. He snapped his whip fiercely and led his men toward Platinum Mountain. Soon they entered the bandits' territory and planned to rest a bit to adjust to their best state. When suddenly, banging sounds came from one of the crates they brought along. A guard was instantly shocked. Something's wrong. There's something inside the crate. He took out the key and was about to open it. Before drinking, the woman was the most dazzling beauty of Shanghai Bund. After drinking, she turned into a silly mess. She had somehow fallen asleep inside the crate and was brought along with the bandit-suppressing team all the way to Platinum Mountain. When she woke up groggy, she had no idea where she was. Qin Tongzhou was stunned by her ridiculous entrance. Why are you here? Lan Huaying stared with innocent wide eyes, showing a confused expression. I don't know. Hearing that absurd answer, it felt like 10,000 crows flew over Qin Tongzhou's head. He immediately ordered his men to send her home. He walked up to Lan Huaying, patting her little head, thinking she must have secretly followed him out of worry. At that moment, Qin Tongzhou heard a strange sound. His face darkened as he shouted, "Watch out!" Several figures suddenly jumped down from the big tree nearby. Lan Huaying froze in fear. Qin Tongzhou pulled her arm toward him and kicked a bandit down in one swift motion. Suddenly, his eyes sharpened as another bandit slashed his arm. He immediately launched a kick straight into the bandit's face, then delivered a knee strike to the abdomen, subduing them with fluid movements. Seeing his injured arm, Lan Huaying trembled uncontrollably. Qin Tongzhou looked relaxed and told her not to worry. Unexpectedly, the bandit grinned viciously. "Qin, even if you kill me, you'll die along with me." Qin Tongzhou then realized the blade had been coated with poison. Lan Huaying's eyes instantly filled with tears. Qin Tongzhou gently caressed her cheek, comforting her. Then a faint smile appeared on his lips. "You can poison the blade, can't I take the antidote in advance?" The bandit didn't believe it. The so-called immortal water was only created yesterday, how could? Suddenly, his pupils widened as he realized Qin Tongzhou had come just to obtain information about the antidote. Qin Tongzhou covered Lan Huaying's eyes with his large hand and issued an emotionless command from his lips. Hearing that bone-cold voice, Lan Huaying felt terrified and unfamiliar. Knowing he didn't have much time left, Qin Tongzhou ordered his lieutenant to take her away. In his heart he swore silently, "Lan Huaying, I will have you." Suddenly his pupils widened in an instant, and he spat out a mouthful of blood with a sharp sound. Hearing the disturbance behind her, Lan Huaying cried out in surprise. Qin Tongzhou curled up on the ground, his body switching between cold and heat, the pain reaching its peak. Lan Huaying hurriedly helped him up and told the lieutenant to take him away from this dangerous place at once. But the lieutenant looked troubled. The bandit suppression mission was ordered personally by the general. Qin Tongzhou rose too quickly and had already angered many. If he failed this mission, his life would be in danger. Lan Huaying hadn't expected Qin Tongzhou, who always seemed calm and carefree, to be trapped in such a dilemma. After thinking it through, she decided to go up the mountain herself, defeat the bandits, and retrieve the antidote for him. While she was planning her countermeasures, Qin Tongzhou woke up from his unconscious state. Seeing she was still there, he became anxious and pushed her away. "Listen to me. Follow the lieutenant and leave. This place is too dangerous." Lan Huaying's face was full of determination. "I won't abandon you." She took Qin Tongzhou's large hand, telling him to trust her. Seeing how firm she was, Qin Tongzhou finally chose to compromise. Soon the two arrived at the bandits' lair, and the white-haired elder leading them showed no fear at all. "Looks like heaven wants me to kill you myself. Qin Tongzhou, go to hell." He pulled out a pistol. Bang. The bullet shot toward him at high speed, Qin Tongzhou's pupils widening instantly. He flipped backward, narrowly avoiding the fatal shot. The bullet hit the tree behind him. The white-haired elder sneered, "You can dodge bullets, but can you dodge the poison in your body?" At that moment, the lieutenant stepped forward, wanting to end things quickly. Qin Tongzhou immediately gave the order. "Proceed according to plan." The bandit leader didn't give them a chance to breathe and called his men to attack with blades, guns, and clubs. Seeing Qin Tongzhou remain calm and composed, Lan Huaying felt there might still be a chance. Before the fight could begin, Qin Tongzhou made a trade offer to the white-haired elder. He lifted the handkerchief in his hand. The bandit chief's eyes widened. He instantly raised his hand, stopping his men from moving. "Seems I misjudged you. You're nothing but a despicable coward." Hearing those words, Lan Huaying immediately grew furious. Shameless. Since when is poisoning a gentleman's act? Seeing her puffed-up expression, Qin Tongzhou couldn't help pinching her cheek. Lan Huaying was both annoyed and why a time like this, "You're still pinching my face?" Suddenly, a voice made the bandit chief's eyes widen in rage. "Dad, save me." The lieutenant appeared, holding a girl hostage. "Release Seventh Master and I'll release your daughter." The elder's face changed drastically. "Juju, aren't you studying abroad?" Qin Tongzhou stayed calm and replied lightly, "Did you forget I also came back from abroad?" Terror flashed across the elder's face. His fingers dug into the wooden window frame, scraping it apart. At last he gave in. "You win." Lan Huaying hadn't expected such a crisis to be resolved without bloodshed. But she didn't believe Qin Tongzhou would actually kidnap his daughter. It turned out the woman, Yu Ro, was just an actress whose figure and voice resembled his daughter. Yu Ro then walked up to Qin Tongzhou with an admiring look. Lan Huaying originally felt no goodwill toward her, but after this incident she actually felt jealous. "Seventh uncle really is impressive. Having a beauty to assist you." She called to the lieutenant, telling him to clear the space for the two of them. Seeing her angry expression, Qin Tongzhou brushed Yu Ro aside and grabbed Lan Huaying's delicate hand. "Miss, I already have someone I like, and that person isn't you." Lan Huaying removed her hat, her face full of anger and displeasure. This Qin Tongzhou really can't stop flirting with women. She instantly became jealous, sulking and hiding far away. Qin Tongzhou looked at her angry back and couldn't help smiling. She was adorable even when angry. He suddenly pulled her into his arms from behind. Lan Huaying was stunned by the sudden gesture, completely confused. "Let go of me, you bastard." Unexpectedly, Qin Tongzhou kissed her lips directly. His boldness left Lan Huaying unable to calm down for a long moment. Looking at the meat roasting over the fire, she suddenly felt starving. She grabbed a bottle beside her, mistaking it for pepper, and poured it over the fragrant roasted meat. Little did she know that this seasoning almost cost her life. It turned out 2 soldiers had rushed off to relieve themselves and casually left the poison bottle on the ground, which she mistook for seasoning. As expected, she was poisoned, her whole body turning hot and cold. Seeing her symptoms, Qin Tongzhou urgently ordered the lieutenant to fetch the antidote. But due to the rush, only 1/3 of the antidote remained. Looking at the unconscious Lan Huaying, he poured all the antidote into his own mouth, then fed it to Lan Huaying. Soon, the lieutenant brought a doctor from Baijin Mountain, but creating the antidote would take another day, so he had no choice but to endure it. At that moment, Lan Huaying suddenly sat up. Feeling strange sensations spreading through her body, she threw herself into Qin Tongzhou's arms. He gently stroked her cheek with indulgence. "That I'll wait for you. I want you to give yourself to me willingly, not because of the drug's effect." Lan Huaying had a strange dream, Qin Tongzhou saying something both domineering and gentle. "You will never escape from the palm of my hand." She jolted awake, her heart pounding wildly. Why would she dream of something like that? She turned and saw Qin Tongzhou lying beside her, scaring her half to death. "You pervert!" Her roar almost tore through the sky. "You bastard! Besides seducing Miss Yu, you even seduced Vienna's Lan Huaying." Qin Tongzhou chuckled and took out a bottle of immortal water from under the pillow, pouring it onto a white handkerchief. "I've known for a long time that you're Lan Huaying. I just didn't expose you. You wanted to play this game with the man you love." As he spoke, he used the handkerchief to wipe the freckles off her face, revealing a stunningly beautiful face underneath. Lan Huaying lowered her head helplessly. He was truly a terrifying man. From this moment on, their fates were tightly entangled. Soon, Qin Tongzhou returned to the army to report back. The old general praised him and informed him that the higher-ups planned to transfer him to Beiping, replacing the old general's position and promoting him to Shanghai's governor-general. Little did he know that such rapid promotion would provoke the local warlord's displeasure. A bloody storm was quietly approaching. The first thing the man did after his promotion was to make his nephew get a divorce, because he had fallen in love with the owner of the Vienna ballroom, who was also his nephew's wife. Qin Tongzhou recommended a fortune-teller to his older brother, claiming he was very accurate. Soon the father and son found that Taoist. The charlatan, looking all immortal-like, hinted that his daughter-in-law was his son's nemesis. Meanwhile, Lan Huaying dressed up as an ugly woman every day at home. Qin Chuan still didn't know his wife's real identity. A smile appeared on his face. This was exactly what he wanted. Once they divorced, he could go find Lan Huaying. But before the father and son even walked a few steps, the rumor Lan Huaying brings misfortune to her husband had already spread across Shanghai. Qin Chuan immediately declared he wanted a divorce and would compensate her with a large sum of money. The old master couldn't withstand the gossip either and eventually agreed. Little did they know this scene was witnessed by Qin Tongzhou. Now, no matter what identity Lan Huaying had, she was his. Meanwhile, in Vienna, Lan Huaying was applying her flawless makeup. Suddenly, a waiter rushed into her room and told her the rumors spreading outside. Lan Huaying's eyes widened. This must be Qin Tongzhou's doing. A weasel paying New Year greetings to a hen never has good intentions. Knock, knock, knock. Someone pounded at the door, breaking her thoughts. The visitor was Qin Tongzhou. Seeing him appear, Lan Huaying instantly exploded with anger. "Qin Tongzhou, this is the second time you barged in without my permission. You don't respect me at all. I don't want to see you." Without saying a word, Qin Tongzhou kissed her forcefully. "This is the first time you've called me by my full name." He pulled her back into his embrace again. Tonight is the day of my promotion. I want you to appear and witness it. Hearing such an unreasonable request, Lan Huaying snapped angrily. Do you want me to attend as Lan Huaying or as your nephew's wife? Qin Tongzhou wasn't angered by her frustration. He lifted her chin lightly, revealing a wicked smile. All I want is you, no matter the identity, and the rumors circulating outside. I'm the one who spread them. At that moment, a knock on the door interrupted their sweetness. Qin Tongzhou looked utterly satisfied. Time always passed too quickly when he was with her. He extended his arm, inviting Lan Huaying to return to the residence with him. Still fuming at his domineering attitude, Lan Huaying said, I'm not going. No matter what identity, I'm not going. Qin Tongzhou shouted immediately, Someone, tell the residents we'll celebrate here in Vienna with the family tonight. Lan Huaying was startled. If this got out, her relationship with Qin Tongzhou would become even more ambiguous. In the end, she still chose to compromise. She stood before the mirror and began her ugly makeup routine, still planning to attend as the nephew's wife. Qin Tongzhou didn't care. After all, she couldn't escape anyway. The two returned to the residence one after the other. When Qin Chuan saw his seventh uncle appear, he immediately put on a flattering smile. Seventh uncle, let me toast you. Today isn't only your big day, it's also my. The old master, seeing his loose mouth, pushed him aside. While glaring resentfully at his father, Qin Chuan accidentally spotted his ugly wife. He walked up, pointing at himself arrogantly. I'm going to divorce you soon. I'm going to be with Lan Huaying. Seeing him still clueless, Lan Huaying couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. Qin Chuan sensed something was wrong and leaned in to question her. Suddenly, a military boot kicked his leg. With a thud, he fell to his knees before Lan Huaying. Qin Tongzhou appeared behind him, his face full of murderous intent. Stay away from her. To successfully get the divorce, she used her identity as the owner of Vienna to hint to Qin Chuan to cast aside that ugly her. And she finally got what she wanted. Qin Chuan arrived at Vienna with gifts in hand, his face full of lechery as he imagined how to obtain Lan Huaying. With a loud bang, the ballroom doors burst open. The male lead Qin Tongzhou entered with a group of servants, carrying boxes of lavish gifts. Lan Huaying was instantly shocked. What was this guy trying to do? Qin Tongzhou spoke with anticipation, saying just 2 words. Marry me. Box after box of priceless gold and jewels stunned the surrounding onlookers. Under everyone's gaze, Qin Tongzhou knelt on one knee. Marry me, Lan Huaying. No matter how hard life becomes, you'll have me. Lan Huaying's face was filled with emotion, yet her mouth spoke rejection. You're crazy, I refuse. Qin Tongzhou showed no sign of accepting rejection. He leaned close and whispered, whether you agree or not, I will marry no one but you. If you don't say yes for a lifetime, then I'll wait for a lifetime. As expected, Qin Tongzhou's move made the front page headlines. Inside Vienna, Lan Huaying crushed the newspaper, furious. Bastard. Now all of Shanghai knows. Are you trying to force me? She closed her eyes, brewing her next move. Even if she had to sell Vienna, she would leave Qin Tongzhou's control. Meanwhile, Qin Chuan was drinking in frustration, having no idea when his 7th uncle got involved with Lan Huaying. At that moment, a blonde woman walked in. Young Master Qin, I'm here to help you deal with Lan Huaying. She had no idea that her appearance almost cost him his life. The Vienna ballroom waiter reported to Lan Huaying that Qin Chuan had brought a woman and specifically requested to see her. Soon she arrived at the entrance of Vienna. She looked around. There wasn't even a shadow of a person. After asking a staff member nearby, she learned they had gone to the backyard. Lan Huaying's face darkened. Why go to the backyard for no reason? He was still a VIP of the ballroom. She had no choice but to head to the backyard. With a sudden scream, the accident still happened. Lan Huaying was kidnapped. At this moment, the adjutant rushed into Qin Tongzhou's office in panic. After hearing from him that Lan Huaying had gone missing, Qin Tongzhou's face changed instantly. He slammed the table hard. Mobilize all elite soldiers. Search the entire city. Whoever touches her, execute without mercy. Her own husband actually planned to kidnap his own wife. They had only been divorced for 1 day, yet he teamed up with a green tea woman to try to take down the owner of Vienna. He had no idea that the irresistible beauty in front of him was the same ex-wife who was once so ugly even dogs avoided her. The green tea woman was even more anxious than Qin Chuan, pointing at Lan Huaying and urging him to take action, or she would let the thugs beside her do it. Things had come this far, yet Qin Chuan suddenly regretted it. Even so, he still walked toward Lan Huaying step by step. Suddenly, a voice made him freeze on the spot. His seventh uncle Qin Tongzhou had arrived, riding a tall horse to rescue Lan Huaying. Qin Tongzhou's eyes sharpened as he spotted Lan Huaying lying inside the shabby hut. Her long 1.8-meter legs were too eye-catching. He rushed forward and lifted her up, while the group had already fled. Hearing Qin Tongzhou's gentle call, Lan Huaying finally opened her eyes. Qin Tongzhou immediately asked who did it, and seeing the confusion on her face, he already knew the answer. He picked her up in his arms. "Don't be afraid, I'm taking you home now." But the way home was destined not to be smooth. With a sharp snap, Qin Tongzhou stepped into a steel trap. The sharp pain made him clench his teeth. Then a massive pit opened beneath them. Ignoring the pain, Qin Tongzhou held tightly onto Lan Huaying's hand. At the bottom of the pit were rows of sharp spikes. Lan Huaying trembled in fear. She looked up at Qin Tongzhou, who had become her only lifeline. The intense pain made cold sweat drip down Qin Tongzhou's forehead. Yet he still spoke to comfort her. "Be good, I won't let go. I'll swing you over." Before he even finished, he swung his arm quickly. The wound on his foot burst open again, blood spraying out. Qin Tongzhou clenched his teeth and used every ounce of strength in his body, finally swinging Lan Huaying up. At that moment, all her dislike for him vanished. Her face was filled with worry and anxiety. "You idiot, do you not want your foot anymore?" Qin Tongzhou risked his life to protect her. He had wanted her to seek help, but it was too late at night, so for safety he told her to stay. Suddenly, Qin Tongzhou's eyes lit up. He saw a hunting knife on the grass and told Lan Huaying to throw it to him. The knife flew toward Qin Tongzhou at high speed and he caught it steadily. He instantly cut the rope around his foot. As he fell, he stomped hard against the cliff wall. Borrowed force, flipped midair and landed handsomely. Lan Huaying looked at him with deep concern. "Are you okay?" Qin Tongzhou used all his strength to pry open the steel trap on his foot. The pain made him grunt softly, but it was resolved without danger. Seeing his injured foot, Lan Huaying grew even more anxious. "Why aren't your men here yet? If they still don't come, I'll carry you down the mountain." Qin Tongzhou returned to his usual teasing tone. "Can you even carry me, silly girl?" This only made Lan Huaying more agitated. "It's getting colder in the mountains. We can't freeze to death here." Qin Tongzhou gently held her small hand, making her cheeks flush red. "Before I marry you, I won't die. And if you want to save me, I'll tell you one way." Lan Huaying was full of question marks. He gently lifted her chin. "Kiss me. Your kiss is my life-saving cure." Lan Huaying strongly rejected this. Soon Qin Tongzhou fell unconscious again. Lan Huaying had no choice but to slowly lean forward and softly kiss his thin lips. Little did she know, two subordinates were gossiping in the nearby bushes. "Keep watch. I just saw 7th Master signal us to scram." Qin Tongzhou woke up from unconsciousness, and the first thing he did was order his men to investigate who dared to lay a hand on his woman. Lan Huaying, for once showing concern, muttered with resentment, "It's already night, and that bastard didn't even send me a message." At that moment, a server came to ask about her arrangements to leave the country. She immediately turned serious. "Handle it now. The sooner the better." What she didn't expect was that Qin Chuan, the scumbag who almost ruined her, appeared in the hallway. His heart was full of guilt, thankful that 7th Master arrived in time. Just as he was about to knock, he accidentally heard Lan Huaying talking to herself. His hand froze. If Qin Tongzhou didn't know that his ugly niece-in-law is actually me, would everything be different? Qin Chuan couldn't believe it and suddenly ran outside. His wife was actually Lan Huaying. The scars on her face were fake. 7th uncle knew everything yet still pushed him to divorce. His face darkened as he clenched his jaw tight. 7th uncle, how could you? She's clearly my woman. Why did you do this? That night, at a private banquet, several businessmen quietly whispered, "Lord Qin didn't show up again tonight." One middle-aged man's face turned serious. "Everyone, our territory is being eaten away by the Qin family bit by bit. We need a counterattack." Meanwhile, Qin Tongzhou was interrogating a prisoner in the dungeon. From the man's confession, he learned that the actress Yu Rou bribed him to ignore what happened in the backyard. They soon arrived at the theater and found the green tea woman. Yu Rou panicked when she saw the adjutant moving in to arrest her. He cried out, "Seventh Master," then hugged him tightly from behind. "How can you be so heartless?" But Qin Tongzhou's face turned terrifyingly cold as he shoved her away. "Miss, are we familiar?" The adjutant was about to take her away. She looked back unwillingly. "I did all of this for you. Lan Huaying is no good." Qin Tongzhou would never allow anyone to insult his woman. "Stop." He stepped closer to Yu Rou. "Don't let me hear you speak ill of her again, or die." Green tea is green tea. Even before dying, she tried to stir up conflict between uncle and nephew. I really felt pity for Qin Chuan. Unexpectedly, he witnessed the whole scene and his heart twisted in pain. One crisis had ended, but a bigger conspiracy was coming. A group of masked men appeared on the commercial street. They used steel blades to pry open the doors of shops. Soon merchants discovered their money was stolen, and crowds began to whisper. The Wang, Lu, and Jin family shops were robbed one after another. Only the Qin family remained untouched. The news caused a huge sensation and even hit the headlines. Someone anonymously reported that Qin's seventh master was colluding with bandits. Even though it was clearly the bandits who stole the money, the public demanded the general get out of Shanghai, triggering a large protest. This scene happened to be witnessed by Lan Huaying. She hurriedly ran to find Qin Tongzhou. Since 3 factories were robbed, funding was cut off, forcing them to lay off workers in large numbers. And the fact that only the Qin shops were untouched raised suspicion among the workers. Seeing that he still looked so calm and unbothered, Lan Huaying showed an adorably angry expression. "Does this guy not worry at all?" Qin Tongzhou already had a plan. He pulled her into his arms. "Thank you for easing my troubles." Soon, a hiring notice was posted at the gate of the Qin family factory. Anyone who came from the 3 affected factories would get a 30% pay raise. All workers who caused trouble were dismissed. Lan Huaying showed a satisfied smile. The crisis was resolved so easily, yet a bigger storm was quietly approaching. Because of this incident, the old general traveled thousands of miles to Shanghai in person. Angry and disappointed, he pulled out a stack of land deeds. "Explain to me how these came to be." Seeing the deeds in the old general's hand, Qin Tongzhou's eyes widened. The black and white evidence left him speechless. He could only admit it. With a loud smack, the general threw the deeds hard into his face. Seeing that Qin Tongzhou had no intention of defending himself, the old general erupted with fury. "Stop the investigation. No one is allowed to leave this residence." Meanwhile, Lan Huaying's exit documents were nearly completed, and she was planning to say goodbye to Qin Tongzhou. Seeing guards at the door, she felt uneasy. Could another problem be coming? She quickly stepped forward to ask and unexpectedly learned that Qin Tongzhou had been suspended. Lan Huaying couldn't help worrying. At night, Lan Huaying bribed the gate guard and slipped quietly into the Qin residence. Seeing his family appear, Qin Tongzhou was surprised. Realizing why Lan Huaying came, his expression grew solemn. "You must not get involved in this matter." But with her personality, Lan Huaying could never sit and watch him be framed. Feeling her concern, Qin Tongzhou showed a faint smile. He took out a file bag, his pre-military assets, and handed all his property to Lan Huaying. He gently pinched her cheek. "I can't stay with you now, but I'll at least make sure you live well." At that moment, the guards urged her to leave, and she had no choice but to part reluctantly. Something felt wrong to Lan Huaying. Suddenly her eyes widened. She seemed to realize something. Meanwhile, Qin Chuan was at home admiring the moon, only to be scolded harshly by his father. Unexpectedly, he even gloated. The old man wouldn't tolerate it. With a loud crack, the cane struck fiercely across his back. The old general finally understood the full story. All the land belonged under Qin Chuan's name. He watched his son scheme against his seventh uncle without even understanding why. Qin Chuan gritted his teeth in anger that he stole my wife. Lan Huaying is my wife. My divorce was all manipulated by seventh uncle. The old general widened his eyes instantly, unable to believe it was true. He never expected Lan Huaying to show up as well. If I'm not mistaken, this is all you're doing. What will it take for you to let him go? Qin Chuan showed a wicked smile. Lan Huaying, or should I say ex-wife. Realizing her identity had been exposed, Lan Huaying was startled. But Qin Chuan grabbed her angrily, pulling her into his arms. That I want you to remarry me. If you refuse, then watch seventh uncle stay imprisoned for life. Lan Huaying was stunned by his despicable behavior. Had she finally regained her freedom only to be shackled again? With her personality, she would never sit and wait for doom. You won't save him. Then I will. Soon Lan Huaying found the old general and handed him a file. General, all the assets found in the investigation belong to me. Lan Huaying. If you don't believe me, you can verify my property records. The old general looked puzzled. If they're yours, why are they under his name? Lan Huaying instantly slipped into full acting mode. I transferred them to his name secretly for tax reasons. We've long been preparing for marriage. I am his fiancée, and I'm willing to donate these assets to the military to make up for my mistake. The guards in the Qin residence rushed in excitedly. Lan Huaying pushed one of them aside and threw herself straight into Qin Tongzhou's arms. Seeing the old general appear, Qin Tongzhou was startled inside. Lan Huaying leaned to his ear and whispered, "Just cooperate with my act. Once this is solved, we go our separate ways." Then she raised her voice, shouting, "It's all my fault. Greed blinded me and caused you trouble, but I've already explained everything to the general." The old general looked at the loving young couple and instantly felt pleased. "You brat, I didn't misjudge you. A true love-struck kid. Miss Lan will accept interviews from major newspapers tomorrow, publicly apologizing for her tax evasion. Your marriage has been delayed far too long, you can't miss it again this time." Lan Huaying pretended to be delighted. "We've already discussed it. We'll hold the wedding next year." To her surprise, the general went even further, insisting they marry immediately and saying he would personally officiate. Lan Huaying felt a streak of despair, afraid she might ruin the whole act. Unexpectedly, Qin Tongzhou agreed cheerfully and even showed a mischievous smile. "To save me, you even threw yourself in, so let me stay with you for a lifetime." Hearing that, Lan Huaying stared blankly at the man before her. But the general was not that easy to fool. Soon a report came from his men. Lan Huaying had sold all her assets a month ago and was preparing to leave the country. How did she suddenly decide to get married again? Doubt rose in the old general's heart, and he decided to investigate the matter thoroughly. Lan Huaying was brought in quickly for a face-to-face confrontation. Her eyes filled with tears as she pretended to look pitiful. "I really was preparing to leave the country. At that time, Qin Tongzhou and I had broken up, but he never blamed me for my mistakes. Only then did I realize he truly liked me." After so many unexpected turns, the old general didn't dare believe easily, but after Lan Huaying's repeated explanations, he eventually chose to trust her, and even insisted on personally arranging a grand wedding for her. Lan Huaying instantly wilted like a frost-hit eggplant. She was truly at a loss. This was already the second wedding she'd had within a week. The first one had lasted only a day before she tried everything to end it, and this time she still planned to escape. Qin Tongzhou pushed open the bridal chamber door and saw Lan Huaying already dressed in her sleepwear, ready to share the cross-cup wine. While he was thinking of testing her, Qin pretended to rush through the wedding rituals and didn't mention her plan to leave. But Qin Tongzhou already knew everything. Though he loved her, he also knew this wedding was fake. He took a bedding roll from the cabinet, spread it on the floor beside the bed. "Don't worry, I won't touch you." This stirred up mixed emotions in Lan Huaying, and she soon fell asleep. Qin Tongzhou walked to her side, watching her sleeping face, and couldn't help himself. He leaned in and kissed her gently. The next morning, Qin Tongzhou was already gone, leaving only a set of clothes and a note by the bed, telling Lan Huaying he had left early for work. She stared blankly at the note. Newly married and already rushing to work. A sudden thought made her blush and her heart raced. If this continued, she would fall completely. She had to talk to Qin Tongzhou quickly. She changed into the clothes he prepared for her and hurried to Qin Tongzhou's office. Just as she was about to knock, she heard him talking with his adjutant inside. After going through a crisis, I realized true love doesn't have to possess. I noticed that whenever I'm around, she feels uneasy. So I came to work early. Guilt washed over Lan Huaying and she turned and ran home. She sat on the bed in a daze, doubting herself. Am I really that bad to him? Just then, Qin Tongzhou returned home. I'll sleep on the floor again tonight. She lowered her head and murmured, how about sleeping together? And thus, the two of them slept on the same bed for the first time. Lan Huaying looked puzzled. Why was he so well behaved today? She sat up, looking at the man sleeping beside her. Suddenly, Qin Tongzhou opened his eyes and pressed her beneath him. Someone's outside. Then the two of them made noises like they were making babies. A guard was quietly listening at the wall. When they heard his footsteps leaving, both of them let out a long sigh of relief. Qin Tongzhou looked helpless. Sorry, I'm guessing that soldier was sent by the general. So he had no choice but to admit that the guess was correct. Soon the guard went to the general and reported the couple's sweetness, showing that the rumors on the street about a fake marriage were untrue. The old general finally felt relieved. Late at night, Qin Chuan staggered home drunk, when a large hand suddenly patted his shoulder. He spun around in shock, and saw a white-haired man behind him, claiming he would help him take down Qin Tongzhou. The two quickly formed a vicious plan. The newly married couple had no idea that another crisis was approaching. The 16-year-old girl had already married twice, yet she was still pure, wanting to give her perfect self only to the man she loved. This wedding was destined to be fake, only to clear Qin Tongzhou's name. With their cooperation, not a single flaw was exposed. The old general was finally preparing to leave. Before departing, he noticed the earrings on Lan Huaying's ears, rare gems worth a fortune. He couldn't help praising the young couple. Lan Huaying turned to look at Qin Tongzhou. He truly was thoughtful. She didn't know a figure in the distance was glaring at them through gritted teeth, and his companion kept urging him to hurry. Just as the old general was about to step onto the deck, a voice called out, "General, please wait," stopping him in his tracks. Qin Chuan stepped forward with his hands cupped. "I am Qin Tongzhou's nephew. I have something to say." Lan Huaying snapped her head around. Seeing the sinister smile on Qin Chuan's companion's face, she couldn't help feeling nervous. Qin Chuan looked completely serious. "Huaying is my ex-wife." Qin Tongzhou knew her true identity, and he seduced and deceived me during the marriage. After the divorce, the two colluded shamelessly to be together. The general was stunned by the dramatic accusation and immediately questioned Qin Tongzhou. Lan Huaying tugged on his sleeve. "Don't speak." But Qin Tongzhou ignored her. "It's true. I don't want to lie to you." The old general gritted his teeth in fury. "Qin Tongzhou, you've disgraced yourself. Don't even think about keeping this position." As expected, he was thrown into prison by the general. Lan Huaying rushed back to the Qin residence and confronted Qin Chuan. "What exactly do you want?" But Qin Chuan didn't even look at her. She could only speak helplessly. "I married you because it was my father's last wish. I never loved you. That's why I left. It has nothing to do with Qin Tongzhou." Qin Chuan refused to listen, waved his hand dismissively and walked away. Watching his departing figure, Lan Huaying felt a touch of loneliness rise in her heart. "Are you all right?" Meanwhile, in the garden, two men were sneaking around making some kind of deal. They were the same companions from earlier that day. Driven by profit, the two ended up arguing. In the middle of their quarrel, one man's eyes narrowed. "Someone's coming." Qin Chuan approached them with a smile. The white-haired man showed a row of tiny white teeth that were on the same team. "Otherwise, how could we have taken down Qin Tongzhou so smoothly?" Qin Chuan replied with a chilling sneer. "That's because if Qin Tongzhou hadn't fallen, how could I have caught you all so easily?" The white-haired man's jaw nearly hit the floor. "What?" Soon several guards surrounded the two. "If my seventh uncle and I hadn't put on this act, how would we have learned your three families planted spies around me?" Qin Tongzhou placed a hand on his nephew's shoulder. "The bond between us uncles and nephews is stronger than gold. You think you can break it?" And with that, the enormous conspiracy finally came to an end, and their uncle-nephew relationship returned to how it once was. Unaware of the truth, Lan Huaying was having a nightmare, dreaming that Qin Tongzhou was tortured and the general ordered his execution. She jolted awake. Qin Tongzhou don't. She had married into a wealthy family yet lived like she was drinking cold wind every day. One day after the wedding, her husband was thrown into prison. She didn't know it was all part of his plan to lure out the true conspirators. Still unaware that Qin Tongzhou had already been released, she stood alone by the river, quietly grieving. Without realizing it, she found herself caring about him deeply. Lan Huaying suddenly discovered she had already fallen. At that moment, Qin Tongzhou's figure appeared behind her. Seeing his wife worrying for him, his eyes filled with affection. Lan Huaying turned around sharply. Qin Tongzhou grabbed her hand just as she was about to ask when he had been released. He gently cupped her cheek and kissed her softly. When their lips parted, a blush spread across both their faces. Qin Tongzhou dropped his usual domineering tone. "I heard everything you said. Since you have feelings for me, I will never let go of your hand again." Lan Huaying widened her round eyes. "Absolutely not." Before she could react, Qin Tongzhou carried her back into the bedroom. Seeing a hint of resistance from her, he still stood up and prepared to sleep outside. Staring at the tightly closed door, Lan Huaying covered her face shyly. This blockhead Qin Tongzhou. Things had already progressed this far. But Qin Tongzhou understood everything clearly, that he had decided he wanted Lan Huaying to willingly accept him. The next day, Qin Tongzhou and Qin Chuan went to a family dinner. Lan Huaying deliberately changed into a red gown. Unexpectedly, her husband glanced at her and instantly turned his head away. Lan Huaying's face was full of anger. "Did I dressed up just for him? Yet he won't even look at me?" Watching the few men chat casually without giving her a shred of attention, Lan Huaying was so angry her little head was practically steaming. Just as she was about to teach Qin Tongzhou a lesson, she didn't expect him to simply stand up and leave. She was practically full from anger alone. When Qin Tongzhou returned home, he was immediately confronted by Lan Huaying. "Why were you avoiding me on purpose? If you don't give me an explanation today, I'm not done with you." Smack. Her jade-like hand struck the wall. "Why don't you even give me a single explanation?" Qin Tongzhou spoke with perfect confidence. "When I get too close, you say I annoy you. When I keep my distance, you think I don't respect you." Lan Huaying was instantly speechless. "What I want is you." She couldn't believe she had blurted it out. Qin Tongzhou pulled her straight into his arms. "Since you want me, then enjoy everything that comes with being my woman." When she woke up again from her sleep, she found the space beside her still empty. She got up. He was gone again. Where was the man? Just as she was about to wash up, the bedroom door slid open with a sharp sound. Qin Tongzhou stood at the door wearing an apron. "Good morning, my wife. Breakfast is ready." As Lan Huaying stared in shock, several Eastern chefs entered in neat formation, each carrying a dish. "Good morning, madam. These are the breakfasts seventh master prepared personally for you." Qin Tongzhou's lips curved. "Not madam, she is Qin Tongzhou's madam." As the warlord's wife, she had set a goal to earn 800 million through social toasting, with the great general personally guarding her. No one in Shanghai dared provoke her. Yet troublemakers still appeared. Qin Tongzhou's eyes suddenly sharpened. A wealthy businessman was yanking a dancer, claiming he would take her away. But Vienna had no rule of selling women. The businessman sneered. "What a joke! If dancers don't sell, who does? You're just blind to status." As he spoke, he raised his arm to strike the girl hard. At that moment, a jade-like hand stopped him. The wealthy businessman jerked his head around. He saw an astonishingly beautiful woman appear. His arrogance vanished instantly. He shook his head hard. He immediately switched to a gentlemanly smile. "Miss, do you know me?" Lan Huaying, long familiar with the nightlife scene, already knew exactly who he was. She let out a soft laugh. Other than Mr. Chin from Ruching, who else would turn ice silk into a robe? The businessman was instantly impressed by her keen eye. Lan Huaying called over a waiter and ordered a bottle of century-old liquor as compensation. Only then did the businessman realize that the woman before him was actually the owner here. Lan Huaying lifted a glass and said, "Everyone in Shanghai knows. My Vienna sells art, not bodies. Please don't make things hard for this girl." Before finishing her words, she raised her head and downed the drink boldly. The businessman had lost all his earlier arrogance that he clasped his hands politely. "Gotta act tough in front of a beauty." He immediately told his attendants to bring a crate of French brandy as an apology. Just like that, the crisis dissolved. The couple swayed together in the center of the dance floor. Qin Tongzhou couldn't help wondering why she hadn't let him step in. Lan Huaying blushed shyly. "Even without a man, I can handle it myself." The lovely pair drew countless onlookers, and during this time together, Lan Huaying had truly felt his sincerity. That night, she finally gave her untouched for 18 years self to him. Even the birds on the tree seemed to blush. At dawn, when Qin Tongzhou woke up, he found Lan Huaying already fully dressed. She believed that even with a man she couldn't just slack off. She wanted to plan for a real career. But Qin Tongzhou teased her instead. "Not going abroad anymore, huh?" Lan Huaying widened her eyes and looked back at him. "Go abroad for what? I still have to make money." Qin Tongzhou pulled her into his arms and told her he had a ready storefront. "Do you still remember Yu Rou?" Hearing that familiar name, Lan Huaying was startled. Soon Yu Rou, locked in prison, received the news. She ground her teeth in hatred. "When I get out, I'll settle this with her." She picked up a bottle of hand cream from her vanity and rubbed it onto her fair hands. "The cosmetics the rich ladies use nowadays are terrible. Not as good as the ones I make myself. I've already contacted a factory. I'm just missing a storefront." In the Republic era, women even created their own BB cream and pushed membership systems. But the noble ladies of major families didn't buy it. Charging 1,000 coins before they even got the product made everyone walk away. Only the wife of Chief Xu stayed, wanting to do Qin Tongzhou a favor and give some courtesy. But Lan Huaying wasn't worried about her sales at all. When she learned that Chief Xu's daughter had acne scars all over her face and was rejected from marriage, she instantly had an idea. She directly gifted 2 sets of anti-acne cosmetics. Chief Xu's daughter also planned to try them. Her face couldn't possibly get any worse, right? After just one night, all the acne marks on her face disappeared, shocking her mother. Soon, the mother and daughter came to the cosmetics shop. Lan Huaying sent out 10 more sets right away. But she wanted the daughter to be the spokesperson, and even become a shareholder. When the doors opened again, the entire entrance was already crowded with people rushing to buy. Qin Tongzhou, thinking his wife's shop wasn't doing well, decided to pick her up after work. Seeing the sign that was supposed to be taken down, plus the sudden flood of customers, left him full of confusion. The two looked at each other from afar and shared a knowing smile. Seeing her busy with her business every day, Qin Tongzhou stepped forward acting cute, wanting her attention back on him. Lan Huaying was stunned. Was this really the mighty war god of the battlefield? She touched Qin Tongzhou's forehead, thinking he must be seriously ill. But it turned out he only wanted to have dinner together and wanted her to pay more attention to him. So the two of them enjoyed a romantic candlelit dinner. But just as Lan Huaying was about to leave, she saw a man and a woman doing some kind of deal in the alley. It was her shop's cosmetics. Because she sold only to members, a batch of counterfeits had appeared on the market. Lan Huaying and Qin Tongzhou decided to report it to the relevant department to crack down on the fakes. And she had already memorized the girl's face. After returning home, she sketched the girl's appearance on paper. Qin Tongzhou was surprised his wife had such skills. He immediately called the adjutant, asking him to find this female student. The next day, a whole batch of counterfeit products was placed on the table. From Adjutant Feiing, they learned the counterfeit group had spread widely, and even the confiscated goods were suspicious. This surprised Lan Huaying, because some real products were mixed inside, making her realize the situation was not simple. Just then, a large hand knocked on the girl's door. The moment the girl opened it, a fat man appeared at the entrance, demanding to collect the goods. The girl directly handed him a set of products. Seeing the fat man's evasive eyes, her pupils widened instantly. "Fatty, you set me up." Just as he was about to run, a large hand grabbed him. The adjutant subdued him in an instant. Lan Huaying picked up the product from the ground and asked whether he was the one who made it. But the girl's cold gaze showed she had no intention of answering. Lan Huaying signaled the adjutant to release the girl. I didn't expect you to do this so well. You're very talented. I'm here to invite you to join Jarn Pharmaceuticals. The sudden twist left the girl staring with wide, shocked eyes. Her husband was the war god of Shanghai, and she herself was a beauty adored by thousands. Together, they were a pair no one dared provoke, and what awaited them was an even greater crisis. With the explosive rise in sales of Lan Huaying's cosmetics, they held a celebration banquet, and the star was her newly recruited capable assistant, Erfu. It was the first time Qin Tongzhou's adjutant saw her in women's clothing, and he instantly felt the rush of first love. Erfu cursed the lecher in her heart, shameless. She seized the chance to escape the awkward place. Alone she walked to the back garden. By accident she bumped into a staff member. His emotionless gaze instantly put Erfu on alert. At that moment Adjutant Feiying came over. He even pinched her chubby cheeks. Erfu pushed him away in disgust. Soon she reported the matter to Lan Huaying. She also drew a sketch of the woman on paper. The couple exchanged a glance, both realizing something big was about to happen, and decided to stage a good show. Lan Huaying prepared to go out for a trip. Little did she know a pair of eyes in the shadows was observing her every move. Confident of the coming plan, Lan Huaying chatted with Erfu in the carriage playing matchmaker. She wanted to introduce Adjutant Feiying to her. Just then a commotion came from outside the carriage. She showed no fear at all and whispered, "They're here." Two men in black blocked their path. Qin Tongzhou had already set up an ambush on the mountain, watching everything unfold. He turned and gave the order to his men. "Madam is in danger. Close the net." Lan Huaying knew the intruders were no simple people, so she could only stall for time. "Isn't this Miss Yu Rou? When did you get released? I should have welcomed you properly." Her words clearly enraged the woman. Yu Rou's veins bulged with fury. Then Yu Rou touched her throat and Lan Huaying froze. She couldn't speak anymore. At that moment, Yu Rou's companion lunged at her with a dagger. Clang! A steel blade blocked the strike in front of her. The one who arrived was Adjutant Feiying. Lan Huaying let out a small smile. "Didn't expect this as my trap, right?" But her triumph lasted less than 3 seconds. A burly man burst out from the woods behind her. Bang! A bullet pierced straight into his forehead. Qin Tongzhou had already gathered his men and fully surrounded the assassins. He even showed a mocking smirk. "Boss, you long time no see." Suddenly Yu Rou went mad and lunged at Lan Huaying. Erfu rammed into her with full force. The dagger pierced through Erfu's back. She and Yu Rou fell off the cliff together. Lan Huaying screamed hysterically, "Erfu!" Thankfully Qin Tongzhou held her tightly in his arms, but she could only shed tears of regret. 7 days later, Qin Tongzhou kept comforting his wife and had already ordered the search area to be expanded. At that moment Feiying arrived and interrupted their conversation. Yu Rou's body had been found, and the calluses on her tiger's mouth and finger joints showed she was part of a trained suicide squad. Meanwhile, a certain man was plotting his own scheme. What interested him most was this husband and wife duo. They would meet soon. Then Feiying reported again. Another body of Yu Rou had been found downstream. The coroner discovered something strange. Their vocal cords had all been destroyed by a special drug, leaving them unable to speak. Everyone had broad palms and thick calluses on the tiger's mouth and finger joints. Combined with their formation that day, they were clearly soldiers, a trained suicide squad. Lan Huaying grew even more anxious. Wasn't Yu Rou just a theater owner? How did this involve military-trained people? Qin Tongzhou gently cupped her face. "My beautiful wife, don't think too much. All you need is to stay happy. The rest is my job." Feiying had barely slept these days searching for Erfu. He refused to rest. Without finding a body, he wouldn't give up hope. Even Qin Tongzhou's orders couldn't stop him. The couple could only sigh helplessly and let him be. Meanwhile, Andre also received the news. Yu Rou had failed and all operatives were dead. Just as he expected, he was now even more intrigued by the pairing of Qin Tongzhou and Lan Huaying that he wanted to meet them soon. That day, Lan Huaying returned to the Vienna nightclub. Ever since opening her beauty shop, she hadn't visited for a long while. She thanked everyone for staying loyal to Vienna and raised her glass to toast the crowd. Instantly, the atmosphere exploded with excitement as everyone cheered, "Boss Lan, we love you." Amid the enthusiastic cheers, Lan Huaying's mood finally lifted a little. She drank until she was completely drunk, then staggered home, thinking she had to hurry back or that man would get jealous again. But halfway down the road, a man rushed out with a knife. He yanked off the jade pendant hanging on her chest. Lan Huaying grabbed it immediately. She could give him money, but he couldn't take that piece of jade. The robber flew into a rage and swung his knife down. Just as she was about to be struck, a red-haired noble leaped out at the last second. He shielded her with his body and blocked the blow. Blood streamed down his arm, yet he still stood firmly in front of her, refusing to move. Soon, the people assigned to protect Lan Huaying arrived and scared the attacker away. The red-haired noble extended his hand gracefully and helped her up with gentle care. He lifted her hand and placed a soft kiss on it, soothing her fright. Lan Huaying herself wasn't too scared. What frightened her more was how much blood Andrei was losing. But Andrei only smiled, unfazed. "Protecting a beautiful lady is my mission, that if you had been hurt tonight, I would have been devastated." Lan Huaying was anxious about his wound and pushed him to go to the hospital with her. If it got worse, she might blame herself forever. But Andrei preferred that she blame herself forever. At least that way she would think of him for the rest of her life. Lan Huaying's face turned green at his words. He was being so cheesy she didn't even know how to respond. Still, she forcibly dragged him to the hospital and urged the doctor to bandage his wound quickly. Just then, Qin Tongzhou received the news and rushed over. The moment he arrived, he held his wife and checked her from head to toe, only relaxing when he confirmed she wasn't hurt. A lingering fear hit him. Thank goodness nothing happened to his wife. Someone actually dared to lay a hand on her. He immediately ordered the city gates and main streets to be sealed. Even if they had to dig 3 feet underground, they must find the culprit, even if it meant turning Shanghai upside down. At that moment, Andrei walked over with a smiling face, greeting him with practiced familiarity. Qin Tongzhou froze. The one who saved his wife was actually him. Andrei grinned mischievously. "So the oriental beauty of my dreams is actually your wife. You never mentioned you were married. Ever since you left, Joanna has really missed you." Hearing that, Lan Huaying instantly went sour. Who on earth was Joanna? Qin Tongzhou gave an awkward laugh. "Just his little sister, that's all." Seeing Andrei about to say something reckless again, Qin Tongzhou pinched the soft flesh at his waist from behind, threatening him not to talk nonsense or he'd deal with him later. Lan Huaying frowned deeply. What was going on with these two men? Andrei immediately began spilling stories, saying Qin Tongzhou had been outstanding and popular back in school. He added that the two of them were as close as brothers, so of course Qin Tongzhou planned to let him stay at their home for a couple of days and even hold a banquet for him. Qin Tongzhou didn't want a third wheel at all, but worried Andrei might expose how much attention he attracted from women, so he had to agree reluctantly. Coincidentally, Lan Huaying also wanted to repay Andrei for saving her life. And since Andrei rarely came to China, they should show proper hospitality. What they didn't know was that Andrei changed his expression the moment he turned away. The couple held a banquet to welcome the crown prince, not realizing he had set up a massive hidden scheme. To repay Andrei for saving Lan Huaying, Qin Tongzhou took him to the governor's residence that very day. Andrei exclaimed, "Old classmate, you've really risen up. Don't forget to take care of your brother." Qin Tongzhou glared at him, annoyed. Everyone knew that 90% of their country's luxury exports were controlled by this guy. He was the crown prince of his nation, the future emperor, a genius in business though terribly mischievous. Lan Huaying gasped repeatedly. Mr. Andrei really was extraordinary. Andrei immediately lifted her small hand and placed a gentle kiss on it, exaggeratedly praising, "Such a beautiful lady, even the gods would descend for her. Marrying you, a wooden block, is truly a pity." Qin Tongzhou was so furious he beat Andrei up on the spot. How dare this guy flirt with his wife? Was he looking for death? But Andre insisted he only acted on impulse. And he even prepared a gift for Lan Huaying, a perfume called ambergris, a specialty of his country, said to be 100 times more precious than gold. Only a gift like this could match a fairy-like lady. Lan Huaying had heard that among the new wealthy circles, ambergris perfume had become trendy, each tiny bottle costing tens of thousands. She didn't expect it was brought by Andre. She immediately wanted to discuss business with him, and Andre happily agreed. He also planned to use the banquet to announce her as his official business partner in China. After all, he was very interested in Lan Huaying's cosmeceuticals. Sharing resources would benefit both sides. After returning to the room, Andre called in Jiang Sen, saying there would be a banquet here tomorrow night. A rare opportunity. He ordered Jiang Sen to bring Ying in, disguised as his secretary, so they could extract information from every attendee. Anyone with influence in Shanghai needed to be thoroughly investigated. The next day, the banquet was held as planned, with elites from every circle attending. Qin Tongzhou gave Andre full respect, inviting everyone from both political and business circles, as long as Andre didn't mention other women in front of his wife. Otherwise, he would definitely kill this idiot. Andre burst into loud laughter, teasing him for being completely wife-controlled. Qin Tongzhou felt embarrassed from the teasing, snapping back. "You single mutt know nothing. This is called love." Seeing the two chatting so happily, Lan Huaying walked over curiously to ask. The two of them answered in perfect sync that it was nothing, just reminiscing about school days. Lan Huaying was completely helpless. These two were basically like children, so she urged them to go make the toast. Qin Tongzhou stepped forward first, announcing that tonight's banquet was to welcome his classmate and friend, Prince Andre of the Foreign Kingdom. Andre seized the chance to announce a major piece of news. His import-export company would officially cooperate with Jiaran Pharmaceutical to open the foreign market. The clever Miss Lan was an excellent partner. With their strong alliance, their cosmeceuticals would surely become luxury goods in the global skincare world. Watching the governor and his wife cooperate so perfectly and finalize a deal with the foreign prince, the four great families were grinding their teeth in fury. One had filled Shanghai with informants and strict control, while the other made business flourish inside the city. As a couple, they now had both power and money, pressing the four great families down until they could barely breathe. All these complaints were heard clearly by Ying, who was hiding in the shadows. After watching the four great families leave, Ying immediately sent people to tail them and continue the investigation. That night, after returning home, Qin Tongzhou once again clung sweetly to his wife. His wife was simply too beautiful. He could never get tired of looking at her. As he said that, he lowered his head and kissed her deeply in her hair. He even personally helped her comb her hair, a gesture of tenderness and love. And after that came the intense paid content part. Meanwhile, Andre had also returned to his room. Jiang Sen arrived with Ying to report what they had gathered tonight. They discovered that the old four great families held deep resentment toward Qin Tongzhou and Lan Huaying. He had already arranged informants to investigate them, while another group looked friendly on the surface but had little contact with the couple, belonging to the neutral faction. At that moment, Jiang Sen presented a newly received telegram from the foreign kingdom. It turned out that the Ross kingdom wanted a political marriage, and Andre immediately decided to marry Joanna off. It would greatly benefit his plans. He had taken care of this half-sister for so many years, and it was time for her to do something for him. Then he ordered Ying to thoroughly investigate everyone on the list. As for himself, he planned to find something for that old classmate couple to do. Letting them stay idle was never his style. Meanwhile, in the foreign kingdom's imperial palace, the princess had already been imprisoned. She secretly ordered Anna to deliver a letter to Tianchao no matter what, and place it into Qin Tongzhou's hands. Her brother was plotting against their homeland and had secretly joined forces with the Ross kingdom to prepare an attack on Tianchao. She begged Qin Tongzhou to crush their scheme or leave quickly. Anna felt wronged on her behalf. The princess had loved Qin Tongzhou for years, but he only saw her as a friend. Why risk opposing the crown prince for him? But the princess loved Qin Tongzhou deeply, so she begged Anna, for the sake of their childhood bond, to escape during the wedding preparations and deliver the letter. Anna nodded solemnly, only reminding the princess to take care of herself, because once she left, she might never return. The princess shed guilty tears. This time she felt she owed Anna. But Qin Tongzhou was the man she loved, and no matter what, she wanted to pray for his safety. Meanwhile, after months of investigation and deployment, Qin Tongzhou had wiped out all the nearby bandits. He had also captured a maid who once worked under Yu Rou. After interrogation using the latest methods, they found that Yu Rou seemed unusually fond of a certain kind of food. At that moment, a soldier delivered urgent military orders. The Ross Kingdom had launched a surprise attack in the north, and the old general had been assassinated. On Lan Huaying's side, a business crisis erupted. The four great families suddenly joined forces to release a full skincare line, claimed to be fully imported and sold at low prices. Some customers using Jiaran cosmetics had allergic reactions and had already filed lawsuits. The media rushed to report it, and even the military department couldn't suppress the news. Qin Tongzhou and Lan Huaying were stunned. How could so many things happen at the same time? War was about to begin. The mad-blooded warlord had just received reports that the nation was under attack, and at almost the same moment, the heroine's cosmetics business ran into trouble. Both of them sensed a conspiracy. That year, the Ross Kingdom suddenly attempted to assassinate the old general. The old general was gravely wounded, hovering between life and death. The Ross troops split into 4 routes, harassing the 4 major passes. Qin Tongzhou was entrusted in this crisis and had to dispatch reinforcements immediately. He ordered his troops to assemble and prepare to depart. But after studying the map carefully, he suddenly realized something was off about the Ross offensive. Yet with departure imminent, he still chose to go home and see his wife first. He didn't know how long this parting would last. On his way back, he also learned that while he faced war, his wife was facing a business crisis. The timing was too coincidental. But the moment they met, Lan Huaying rushed toward him with a bright smile. She jumped straight into his arms and held him tightly. Qin Tongzhou, full of worry, wanted to say something. During his wife's crisis, he had to leave and guilt weighed heavily on him. But all his words were stopped by a slender finger. Lan Huaying told him not to worry. She wasn't a fragile woman and could handle everything. She said the home front was hers to manage. Qin Tongzhou hugged her tightly, deeply moved. To marry such a wife, he had no regrets in this life. They held each other deeply in their final embrace before parting. And all of this was observed by someone hiding in the shadows. Soon, Qin Tongzhou gave the order to depart and led the main force northward. At this moment, everyone gathered in the governor's residence to accompany Lan Huaying, afraid she might feel scared. Qin Chuan gently comforted his aunt, saying that his uncle would surely return victorious. André also smiled warmly and told her not to worry, promising that he would take good care of her in Qin Tongzhou's place. Lan Huaying was amused and laughed out loud, praising him as a gentle gentleman. But what she was actually thinking about was something else. She had already figured out how to resolve the crisis of Jiaran Pharmaceuticals. As André's business partner, if she couldn't give him confidence, that would be her failure. Lan Huaying playfully blinked at him, telling him not to worry and to leave the matter to her. After saying that, she took her nephew Qin Chuan and headed out to handle the business crisis. What she didn't know was that her playful wink and graceful silhouette had already made André stare in a daze. He had truly begun to develop a deep interest in her. At that moment, at the entrance of Jiaran Cosmetics, the so-called victims held banners and loudly accused the brand, claiming they were disfigured after using the products and demanding the government punish the fraud. Reporters scrambled to cover this breaking news. Just then Lan Huaying arrived by car. Reporters immediately surrounded her, asking how she viewed the situation. Everyone had thought Lan Huaying would panic and break down in tears. But instead she remained calm and steady, stepping out of the car without the slightest panic. She walked straight to the crying victims, bowed deeply and apologized to them with complete sincerity. She also stated firmly that regardless of the truth, Fair Lady Cosmetics would never evade responsibility, and would fully cover their medical expenses and hire top foreign doctors to treat them. The victims were stunned and their crying stopped instantly. Lan Huaying even asked the media to select a few representatives to supervise the entire process and publish updates daily as proof of their sincerity. Soon, the news made the front page and everyone praised Lan Huaying for taking responsibility. Andre read the paper and kept praising her. This woman was truly impressive. Only with someone like her would the game be fun, but he only hoped the four great families weren't complete fools. Even Shadow didn't think highly of them, believing they could never defeat Lan Huaying so easily. He had investigated Lan Huaying's background. Whether she built Vienna from scratch, became a famous socialite in Shanghai, or now as the governor's wife and owner of Fair Lady Cosmetics, she always handled everything with perfect poise, proving her composure surpassed that of most men. Andre nodded repeatedly as he listened. Only a woman like this was worthy of playing with him. Soon Shadow met with the four great families. They had long been waiting. The products Shadow provided were simply too good. Their sales had multiplied several times in just a few days, and they finally felt they could rise again on the Shanghai Bund. A hint of contempt flashed in Shadow's eyes. But this time the new product he brought was targeted at male customers. It was a national treasure-grade cigarette from the foreign state, completely different from the tobacco sold within the celestial nation. The men of the four great families immediately took the cigarettes and lit them. After just one puff they raised their thumbs. This smoke made their throats feel refreshed and their minds clearer. Truly not an ordinary product. Shadow boasted as well, saying it was a wellness cigarette used exclusively by the royal families of 3 nations, and long-term use could energize the body and calm the spirit. The four great families immediately decided to renovate their shops into chain stores and promote the product aggressively. Seeing how perceptive they were, Shadow was satisfied and directly appointed them as the exclusive distributors of the tobacco products. The four great families were so excited they kept pledging loyalty to him. They even offered 2 twin girls as a gift to the crown prince. On the surface, Shadow clinked glasses with them, celebrating their smooth cooperation and vowing to build a commercial empire together. But behind their backs he revealed a strange, twisted smile. Meanwhile, in the middle of the night at the governor's mansion, Andre was fully focused on studying recipes. At that moment, Shadow returned to report. Everything had been handled exactly as the master instructed, and the four great families had even presented 2 clean girls. But Andre showed no interest at all. Without even a glance, he simply rewarded them to the servants. Everyone found it strange. Wasn't the master always most fond of clean girls before? Maybe he wasn't feeling well? But they could never guess what their master was thinking. They simply followed orders and sent the 2 girls away. Late at night, after finishing everything, Lan Huaying returned to the governor's mansion exhausted. She was surprised to find Andre sitting at the dining table, smiling as he waited, with a full spread of late-night dishes he had prepared. These days Andre knew she always returned at midnight, so he specially cooked porridge and a few small dishes to warm her stomach. As he spoke, he personally filled a bowl of porridge and handed it to her. The mad warlord had gone off to battle. Yet the crown prince of the foreign nation was taking the chance to flirt with the heroine, even learning to cook just to feed her. In the middle of the night, when the tired Lan Huaying returned from work, he greeted her with a warm smile and offered the bowl. She didn't want to reject his kindness, so she accepted it and tasted it carefully. After just one sip, she praised it repeatedly. Smooth, soft, with a faint fragrance, his cooking was truly excellent. Andre was overjoyed by her praise, staring at her with obvious infatuation. Drinking a hot bowl of porridge after such a long day, Lan Huaying felt her whole body relax and couldn't help feeling even more grateful toward him. Andre didn't take credit, simply saying that since he had disrupted her life for so long, doing this little bit was only natural. In truth, Lan Huaying had long wanted to ask what Qin Tongzhou used to be like. Since they had been classmates, Andre must know more about her husband. Saying this made Lan Huaying a little embarrassed, her cheeks turning red. Hearing that, Andre's expression darkened slightly. But soon he recovered his usual look and slowly drifted into memories. Qin Tongzhou was truly perfect in every way, perfect to the point of making others jealous. Back at the Britannia Military Academy, they often sparred in swordsmanship. Qin Tongzhou won every time and always looked relaxed. he always acted calm and effortless. Andre, on the other hand, was always panting heavily, completely unable to hide the frustration in his eyes. Even in tactical simulations, his strongest field, everything became worthless before Qin Tongzhou. Qin Tongzhou would still break through all his setups with ease, then grin playfully and say "I win" as if he hadn't used any effort at all. Even Andre had to admit that he was extremely disciplined, hardworking, and admired by many. Hearing this, Lan Huaying felt a little sour and quickly asked who exactly admired Qin Tongzhou. Andre then mentioned his younger sister Joanna. He remembered that it was only his second year in the academy and Joanna was just 16. She met Qin Tongzhou at a party once and fell for him instantly, seeing only him from then on. When Qin Tongzhou returned to his homeland, Joanna waited for him bitterly for 5 years. Until she became a young woman in her 20s. As royalty, her marriage was never her choice. Her behavior angered their father, the emperor, so she was confined to the palace and forbidden to take a single step outside. Hearing this, Lan Huaying felt sad for the girl and sighed that she was truly devoted. Andre let out a sigh. The more devoted the heart, the deeper the wound. Back then he kept wondering what kind of person could win Qin Tongzhou's heart, and he never expected it would be Lan Huaying. Lan Huaying, however, felt that the reason they could be together was simply because they could support each other. She didn't say anything more, thanked Andre for telling her so much tonight, said a polite good night and prepared to return to her room. Seeing this, Andre gently took her hand and placed a soft kiss on the back of it, saying tenderly, "Good night. Sweet dreams, my goddess." Lan Huaying pulled her hand back instantly as if burned. Smiling awkwardly, she declined. She still wasn't used to foreign hand-kissing etiquette. Andre's expression dimmed, and he could only watch her leaving figure in a daze. Then his gaze twisted into something darker. Qin Tongzhou marrying such a wonderful woman only made his jealousy burn even stronger. Meanwhile, far in the northern region, Qin Tongzhou kept thinking about his wife every moment. Flying Eagle had just sent out the gift he ordered for Lan Huaying. On his way to the intelligence bureau, he felt genuinely envious of the young marshal and his wife. They were far apart, yet their feelings seemed even stronger than before. He couldn't help thinking of Erfu, wondering how she was now, that if she hadn't fallen off that cliff, maybe the two of them would already be together. Just then a beautiful woman walked past ahead. That familiar face and figure. It was clearly Erfu, the one he had missed for so long. At that moment, Erfu was handing a packet of medicine to a cart-pulling man. Since her master was too busy seeing patients to leave, he asked her to deliver the medicine. Brother Lu thanked her repeatedly and even called her Miss Shen. Right then, Flying Eagle rushed over and grabbed Erfu's arm. Excited and overjoyed, he shouted, "Erfu, it's really you. I searched all over Shanghai and couldn't find you. I thought you were truly gone." Saying this, Flying Eagle choked up and couldn't continue, pulling her into his arms in sheer relief. He kept thanking the heavens for sparing Erfu and keeping her safe. But Erfu let out a startled cry, hurriedly shoved him away and blushed angrily. "Who are you? Men and women shouldn't touch, and in public too. Are you being indecent?" Flying Eagle froze. Erfu didn't recognize him at all.